Hello, year four. I hope you've enjoyed listening to the Twits. Here's the next part. It's called Mr. and Mrs. Twit Go Off to Buy Guns. The next morning, when Mr. Twit came out with his huge basket, not a single bird was sitting on either the monkey cage or the big dead tree. They were all perched happily on the roof of Mr. Twit's house. The roly-poly bird was up there too, and the monkeys were in the cage, and the whole lot of them were hooting with laughter at Mr. Twit. "I'll wipe that silly laugh off your beaks," Mr. Twit screamed at the birds. "I'll get you next time, you filthy feathery frumps. I'll wring your necks, the whole lot of you, and have you bubbling in the pot for bird pie before the day's out." "How are you going to do that?" asked Mrs. Twit, who had come outside to see what all the noise was about. "I won't have you smearing sticky glue all over the roof of our house." Mr. Twit got very excited. "I've got an idea," he cried. He didn't bother keep his voice down because he didn't think the monkeys could understand. "We'll both go into town right away and we'll buy a gun, each," he shouted. "How's that?" "Brilliant," cried Mrs. Twit, grinning and showing her long yellow teeth. "We'll buy those big shotguns that spray out 50 bullets or more with each bang." "Exactly," said Mr. Twit. "Lock up the house while I go out and make sure the monkeys are safely shut away." Mr. Twit went over to the monkey's cage. "Attention!" he barked in his fearsome monkey trainer voice. "Upside down, all of you, and jump to it. One on top of the other. Quick! Get on with it, or I'll feel Mrs. Twit stick across your backsides." Obediently, the monkeys stood on their hands and clambered one on top of the other, with Muggle Wubble at the bottom and the smallest child at the very top. "Now stay there till we come back," Mr. Twit ordered. "Don't you dare move. And don't overbalance. When we return to our house in 2 or 3 hours' time, I shall expect to find you in exactly the same position as you are now. You understand?" With that, Mr. Twit marched away. Mrs. Twit went with him, and the monkeys were left alone with the birds. As soon as Mr. and Mrs. Twit had disappeared down the road, the monkeys all flipped back onto their feet the right way up. "Quick, get the key," Mugglebump called out to the roly-poly bird, who was sitting on the roof of the house. "What key?" shouted the roly-poly bird. "The key to the door of our cage," cried Mugglebump. "It's hanging on a nail in the workshed. That's where he always puts it." The roly-poly bird flew down and came back with the key in his beak. Mugglebump reached a hand through the bars of the cage and took the key. He put it in the lock and turned it. The door opened. All 4 monkeys leapt out together. "We are free!" cried the 2 little ones. "Where shall we go, Dad? Where shall we hide?" "Don't get excited," said Mugglebump. "Calm down, everybody. Before we escape from this beastly place, we have one very important thing to do." "What?" they asked him. "We're going to turn those terrible twits upside down." "You're going to do what?" they cried. "You must be joking, Dad." "I'm not joking," Mugglebump said. "We're going to turn both Mr. and Mrs. Twit upside down with their legs in the air." "Don't be ridiculous," the roly-poly bird said. "How can we possibly turn those 2 maggoty old monsters upside down?" We can, cried Mugglebump. "We're going to make them stand on their heads for hours and hours, perhaps forever. Let them see what it feels like for a change." "How?" said the roly-poly bird. "Just tell me how." Mugglebump laid his hand on one side, and a tiny twinkling little smile touched the corners of his mouth. "Now and again," he said, "but not very often, I have a brilliant idea. This is one of them. Follow me, my friends, follow me." He scampered off toward the house, and 3 of the other monkeys and roly-poly bird went with him. "Buckets and paintbrushes," cried Mugglebump. "That's what we want next. There are plenty in the workshed. Hurry up, everyone. Get a bucket and a paintbrush." Inside Mr. Twit's workshop, there was a huge, enormous barrel of hard-tight sticky glue, the stuff he used for catching birds. "Fill your buckets," Mugglebump ordered. "We are now going to the big house." Mr. Twit had hidden the key to the front door under the mat, and Muggle Wobble had seen her doing it, so it was easy for them to get in. In they went, all four monkeys with buckets of sticky glue. Then came the roly-poly bird flying in after them, with a bucket in his beak and brush in his claw. The great glue painting begins. This is the living room, announced Mugglewump. The grand and glorious living room where those two fearful, frumptuous freaks eat bird pie every week for supper. Please don't mention bird pie again, said the roly-poly bird. It gives me the shudders. We mustn't waste time, cuddled Mugglewump. Hurry up, hurry up. Now the first thing is this. I want everyone to paint sticky glue all over the ceiling. Cover it, smear it in every corner. Over the ceiling, they cried. Why the ceiling? Never mind why, shouted Mugglewump. Just do as you're told and don't argue. But how are we going to get up there, they asked. We can't reach. Monkeys can reach everywhere, shouted Mugglewump. He was in a frenzy of excitement now, waving his paintbrush and his bucket and leaping about all over the room. Come on, come on. Jump on the table, stand on chairs, hop on each other's shoulders. Roly-poly bird can do it flying. Don't stand there gaping. We have to hurry. Don't you understand that? Those terrible twits will be back any moment, and this time they'll have guns. Get on with it, for heaven's sake. Get on with it. And so the great glue paint of the ceiling began. All the birds who had been sitting on the roof flew in to help, carrying paintbrushes in their claws and beaks. There were buzzards, magpies, rocks, ravens, and many more. Everyone was splashing away like mad, and so many helpers. The job was soon finished. Stay tuned for the next part.